Getting shot lines on deep wrecks is a real art. Most of the time we're absolutely fortunate and the skippers nail it, but sometimes they don't quite get it right. So this video is a dive where we missed the wreck. Well, we initially missed the wreck anyway. So loads of interesting things in this video. You've already seen that massive skate that we found on the bottom, but there's a whole load of other good stuff as well. I think you'll enjoy the process we go through. I'm pretty certain you'll enjoy the results. So if you give us a like, if you give us a comment, that'd be brilliant. Otherwise, sit back, watch and enjoy. This dive is from the 2023 Lost in Waters Deep and Gasparado's expedition to the Orkney Islands. Many of you will know it as Scapa Flow. We pushed well out of the flow up towards Fair Isle and beyond, and this was the 5th dive that we did. The previous days we'd had some absolutely blinding results. We'd found HMS Negro, we'd found HMS Host, and we'd dived on 2 other cracking wrecks as well. So we were absolutely on a roll. It was going really well. So this dive was on our way back into Scapa Flow. We'd done our main objectives, and there was an unknown mark on the chart that we thought we'd go and investigate. Getting a shot on it proved quite challenging, and the skipper had about 4, 5, maybe 6 goes. Every time he went down, the shot would move, and so it had to be recovered, brought back on the boat and then put in again, which is just frustrating and time consuming for everybody. So eventually it got it down and it didn't move, and it was like, brilliant, here's our chance. As happened on every dive on this trip, Rick and myself got ourselves in first, and we had the scooters and we then scooted down as quickly as we possibly could. Now this dive's another one where I've got my dive computer information showing in the bottom left hand side. I've also got the dive profile in the centre, and you can see there that's obviously time along the bottom axis and depth along the left axis, the y axis. So hopefully that'll be useful for people who like to track these things. One of the slight problems is that the logging frequency on the log that I've got for this dive is, I think, every 10 seconds, so it doesn't update maybe as often as you would do, but hey, it's better than nothing. And the good news is dives from this point onwards, I've increased the logging frequency, so I will get more accurate profiles. But hey, hopefully you'll find it interesting. And I'd just like to give a massive shout out to Eric Stott, who's the guy who has done the work to allow this to happen. I'm going to put a link in the description and in the top of the screen there, which will allow you to go to his YouTube channel, watch his videos. I'm sure he would really appreciate that. But also on there is one that explains how you can do exactly the same thing with your dives. So there's information on the telemetry software and how to get it from the sheer water onto the screen. So that's a really good bit of kit. Anyway, back onto the dive. So you can see here, this is me scootering down. I've got my GoPro on, I've got my video lights on. 27 meters, it's pretty dark, but you can see the water's looking really clear, and that's absolutely what you get in this part of the world. If you haven't watched my video about the finding of HMS Negro, you should definitely do that. It's one I'm really proud of. This was the day before this dive, so we found the bell, we identified the wreck, we solved the mystery. We did that the day before this dive. The day before that, we dived on HMS Host, which was the vessel that was involved in the collision with HMS Negro. That one was upside down, so we weren't conclusively able to identify it, but there's no other ships down there or in this area that match the kind of the features of the Host. So it had Yarrow boilers, it was the right length, or right place, all those kind of things. So it's pretty certain it is. And we identified another wreck the day before that as well. So we were having an absolutely cracking time. And then we were on this mark. It was actually thought to be a submarine, and there are a few missing submarines in and around Scapa Flow. So we were kind of, slightly excited about going down. I think there was, although it had been suggested it was a submarine, I think there was some knowledge that perhaps it wasn't, and that was maybe based on the side scan. Kevin Heath was the man who was doing a lot of the research behind all these dives, and he was the person who was giving us that information. So anyway, we were going down, hoping that it was going to be another 4th identification, day on day, and obviously Rick and myself being the first down the line every day, we kind of felt those. Now this is me getting to the bottom of the shot line, and what you need to do is try and figure out what I didn't do on this dive that I should do. I'm not going to say now, but I'll say towards the end of the dive. If you know what it is, stick something in the comments. But anyway, so I've got down to the bottom of the shot line, and you can see there is the shot, which is a spud weight, and the thing that's floating above it is what we were using as a pill. We'd had a few problems with the pill, so we were sending it up the line, but obviously there's no wreck, and you can see it goes pitch black, and the reason it's gone pitch black is because it is really dark down here, but it's also because I am getting out this thing here, which is my distance line. So we'll get to the bottom of the wreck, at bottom of the shot line, there's no wreck. So as the first pair of divers down, what we're going to do is look for it, and we're going to distance line out from the shot line to try and find the wreck. We're not going to send the pill up because obviously there's no wreck, but there we go. So I've attached my distance line, you can see, to the bottom of the shot there. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I think I've managed to puncture my dry glove. So what I've done there is, you can see that little bit of tube in my right hand, that I've just taken that out of the dry glove, and I'm going to close the dry glove up, and that will, although my hand will be wet, it will stop the water going up the inner seal up into my arm. So I've done that. This is, I don't know how I managed to puncture that dry glove. Maybe it was just leaking. Maybe sometimes I snag them when I put my gear on and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I am here. I've attached my distance line, and I'm now scootering out. And I think we had a rough idea in which direction that the current was running. So what I'm doing here is running into where we think the current would be. And obviously, the kind of thought is that the shot has been on the wreck and has then dragged off in the current. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And as I'm going out here, I'm looking for drag marks, because that big weight down there will obviously hasn't snagged onto anything. And if the current is strong enough, it will move. Now, there isn't any drag marks on this particular bit of the shot, because this one didn't move, as we know, but all the previous attempts to shot the wreck, we know that the shot line was moving, so therefore there are going to be some drag marks around here somewhere. So you can see there, just looking back, and I'm reeling out, there's Rick behind me, he's still with me, but I'm now at 90 metres. You can see I'm only, 7 minutes into the dive. I've already got half an hour of TTS, and there's no sign of the wreck. So at some point, you've got to kind of decide whether the deco is worth the hassle. But you know what? There's some plus sides to being the first pair of divers down. The plus side is you obviously get on to whatever you're on first of all. The downside is if this happens and the shot isn't on the wreck, your number one job is to try and find the shot so that the other divers can get it on the wreck. And that is obviously what Rick and myself are doing. But it's pretty blank and featureless down here. You can see there's nothing, just a few, there's some sand waves on the bottom, very small sand waves, there's a few pebbles, there's a few bits of plankton or something, I don't know what that is, growing down here. What there isn't is any wreck. Now, obviously I'm reeling out on the distance line. At some point I'm going to get far enough, and I'm going to either turn to the left or turn to the right, depending as the wind takes me, and then I'm going to do a big circular search. But I'm not quite at that point yet, but I suspect I am going to be pretty soon. So there you go. You can see. And what am I looking out for? Well, wrecks. Sometimes you can see them if the water is light enough. You can see like shadows from wrecks. That sometimes does happen. Sometimes you can see bits of wreckage on the seabed, bits that have fallen off it. That can be a really good clue. Sometimes you can see actually the sand builds up next to the wreck, and so you start to see a little bit of a mound. Sometimes you also see, the seabed changes composition as well. So sometimes you get more, rocks or less rocks, or but for me, the big giveaway that you're near a wreck is always fish. If you see fish, you know pretty much that you're close to a wreck. So that's what I'm looking for, and it tends to be small fish. They like to live in wrecks. Obviously, they offer food and they're a good source of protection. Everything. You see small fish, you're probably close to a wreck. What you can see here, though, is this is a drag mark. So this is, in fact, there's a pair of drag marks you can see there. So that's pretty good grouping from the skipper. You can see he's tried to put it on the wreck. He's obviously not been successful. and there is those drag marks in the sand. And what you can see me doing is I'm following up here. I'm hoping that the wreck is at one end of those drag marks, but we shall see. So hopefully you're all on the edge of your seats in kind of anticipation for what I'm going to find. But what I would do is just highlight the deco again. So here we are. It's 8 minutes 30 into the dive. I've got 40 minutes of TTS, and what we haven't got obviously is a wreck. There's Rick off to the right hand side of me, and so we're sticking together. He's obviously off to the right a bit. He's looking out mainly to the right. I'm looking mainly to the left, and you could probably hear me calling to Rick there. And I think I've probably felt that we've gone out far enough. There you go. Hopefully he's heard me. I'm probably waiting for him to look at me. There we go. I've decided to go left, I think. Not particularly sure why I've decided to go left, but I have. And then that is totally unexpected. That is a big flapper skate. I mean, it looks smaller than it is, but trust me, that was a beast. And these are a type of skate that you get in and around the Orkney Islands, this kind of part of North Scotland. They do loads of research, loads of studies on them and everything. They put down kind of baited traps and all that sort of stuff. And they were really excited. There was one of the crew on board the boat was part of the team that was doing that work. And she was really excited when we got back on the boat and we said we'd seen one of those. Much more excited about that than she was about what we're going to find in a bit. But anyway, you can see here what I've done is I've locked the distance line off now. And I'm now going in an arc. You can see I'm just going over another one of those drag marks down there, and but still no sign of the wreck. So I've been in the water 10 minutes now. This kind of depth, 90 odd meters, your total bottom time is going to be 20 something minutes, and even then you're going to get a nearly 3 hour deco. So I'm incurring a fairly significant penalty here, and obviously what I'm going to be is absolutely devastated if I don't find the wreck, because of course it's all kind of for no particularly good reason. So I'm bringing it in a bit. You could probably just saw at the top another one of those drag marks. But even though the viz is good, it is pitch black. So what I'm really looking for now is kind of fish. I think possibly at this point I might even have given up. You can see me start to reel back in. Rick is starting to come back in. I think we've just decided at this point that there's nothing particularly there. Now, for anybody, I've got a huge admiration for cave divers, not because of diving caves, which is just pretty dull, frankly, but because what they often do is they do a lot of distance line work while scootering, and it is a complete pain to do that, because you've got to, as you can see here, what you do is you kind of scooter a bit, you reel in a bit, you scooter in a bit, you reel in a bit, and it's just kind of really hard work. But anyway, it is what it is. That's what I'm doing, and you can see Rick's gone a bit ahead of me. He doesn't have to do the reeling in, so he can just scooter back. But he's not going too far away. He's keeping an eye on me. Now I think round about this point, what I do is I just look off to my right, and you remember I said about sometimes the bottom changes composition, and we know the wreck is around here somewhere, but it just seems to me this bit off the right just seems as though the bottom is changing composition a bit. There's a few more rocks, and then look, bingo, there's some fish. And the instant I see those fish, I'm like, that is a really good sign. The bottom's really different. There's loads of fish. I'm starting to get a little bit of adrenaline going, and I'm starting to think, yeah, this is the wreck is somewhere close. And you could probably just hear me calling out there that I've seen it, and there it is, bump. I mean, it's not a huge distance from the shot line, but it is 90 meters, and and therefore, having spent all that time, 10 odd minutes doing a search for it at this depth, and then to find it, I'm just really excited. So I think the first thing you can say is definitely not a submarine, and you can see I've just come over the top of it now, and it's clearly lying on its side. What I don't know at this moment is the bow is off to my right, and the stern is off to my left, but I'm going to figure that out fair enough. And you can see this is not a particularly big wreck, and that's why it's been so difficult to shot, because it's lying with the tide and it's a small wreck. So even though those drag marks were actually really close to this, it's obviously it's not being close enough to kind of to sit on it. And I mean, the other thing I would say is that the boat that we're using, Placina, is a big old beam trawler, and now, you know, moving it around to do really precise shotting is, I mean, I've never done it, so I'm not a skipper, but I would imagine is not the easiest thing in the world. So to get the shot as close as it was, is that, given the size of this wreck, is actually quite an impressive piece of work. And anybody who thinks differently, frankly, has never tried to do it. So, yeah, I mean, kudos. You can see there the size of the ship. That boiler is the entire beam of the ship. You can see what I'm doing here is I'm just reeling in a bit more of my reel, and then I'm going to leave it on the edge of the wreck so that other people, when they get down the shot line, can come on it. So the whole focus of this dive has now changed. Up until this point, it's been about getting on the wreck, which I've now done. I've laid the line, so other people will hopefully get to the bottom of the shot line, deploy their own line, and follow mine and get over here. This dive is now about trying to find anything that will help us to identify this wreck. So what I'm doing now, as you can see here, is, well, I'm just having a quick look at my dive computer there, 72 minutes TTS. So I ain't got long. I haven't got much time in this wreck, so I need to do whatever I can. That's me going over the top there, and you can just see that's obviously a small steam engine, 3 cylinders. I think that would be useful, you know, in terms of identifying it. If you wanted to do really well, you could measure the cylinder heads. Obviously don't have time, also don't have a tape measure. There's a big net at the back. This probably area here, maybe, you know, there'd be a bridge or some accommodation or some crew or something like that. None of that. There's just a big old net right around the stern. So but, you know, quite a few fish. Where were they when I needed them, eh? Where were they, you know? Why weren't they guiding me in instead? They're just sitting here hiding in the net. So I'm just having a quick look in here. Obviously, the stern is often where accommodation areas are. So I'm kind of hoping that there might be something in there that would give us a clue, you know, a bit of crockery or something like that. Unfortunately, there isn't anything, and nobody found anything at all like that on this wreck. So we weren't able to identify it. I mean, there's a few potential kind of small steam trawlers, and I think that the view was that this was a fishing vessel. Up the front, there's a kind of like a bathtub thing that we think might be associated with fishing, and there's quite a few of them lost, you know, this kind of era in this type part of the world. You can see there's the prop, the rudder is over, so turning to port. You know, that may or may not be relevant if we knew a bit more about it. But at the moment, it's just kind of an observation. And then looking over the, you know, I'm back on the top here, having, you know, a look again. You can see there my TTS is just kind of going up and up and up. Once again, looking inside here, trying to find anything, but there's nothing. You know, this, I guess, seems to be a relatively cheaply made vessel. I haven't seen a single brass thing so far, and I'm normally pretty good at spotting them. What I have seen there, though, that's obviously my distance line. Like all my reels, it's made by Kent Tooling Diving Products. John and Liz down in Kent, who are absolutely fantastic, super people, and, you know, make absolutely super quality kit. I'll put the link in the comments if you're interested in buying one. These things, they'll survive nuclear war. They're absolutely bomb-proof. So but you can see I'm reeling back in there, and it's probably because you can see I've got up to an hour and a half, and I know that I'm not coming back to the back of the ship. I want to be going to the bow, so I'm starting to reel in there. You can see it's gone pitch black again, which happens as soon as the lights are nowhere. I'm nowhere near my face, so you just see the kind of the dive computer through the gloom, but most of it is pitch black. There is stuff going on. Genuinely, it's because I'm doing something with my reel, and the video lights from my scooter aren't illuminating things, so all you're seeing is my arms waving around there. And I think I've just put the reel on another bit of the wreck. There you go. In fact, I've wrapped it around a little bit, and that's because I'm going to go up and have a look at the bow now. So there you go. The stern is off to my left hand side now. This is the bow up the front there, and you can see there's some sort of tube or possibly mast there on the right. In front of it is the thing that we called the bathtub. I don't know what it is, but we kind of view was it was something to do with fishing. And here I am, you can see up on the bow again, having a look around. Obviously wouldn't, really keen to try and find the bell, which would be the, what we need, because obviously that then sorts everything, but we don't find the bell. And, who knows where it is. Maybe this wreck, as you saw at the stern, is covered in fishing line. So maybe at some point it's been trawled off or dredged off, or in fact could just be there lying under that pile of stuff in the sand. Who knows? Probably nobody will ever dive this thing again. So it's unlikely that it will be found. But this is what I'm doing here, is I'm just slowly looking down there and trying to see if there's anything. I mean, there's a few bits and pieces on the seabed, but none of them, unfortunately, are looking that interesting. There's a bit of trawl gear there. You can see those kind of circular black rubber things, but nothing really. So I guess if you had to put an era on this vessel, you'd probably say it was in between the wars. I haven't really seen anything that would indicate there's electricity on board it. I mean, it might be kind of late Victorian, that kind of time. Who knows? But you can see part of the side is stoved in here, so maybe that's the reason it sank, or maybe that's something that's happened afterwards. We will probably never know, unfortunately. But then down to the side there, you can see there's a strobe. That's Rick. I suspect he's probably put that on there to let other divers know. Now, we hadn't let the pill go, so the interesting thing is other divers did get in the water. And I think what we'd said was that if there's no pill by 10 minutes, people would get in the water anyway and come down. If they saw a delayed S&B come up, then nobody would bother getting in the water because they knew there wasn't a wreck. But obviously for us to go back to the shot to release the pill would have taken quite a lot of our dive time. So we found the wreck. We are going to get ourselves back now. There's my reel, and I don't want to leave it down there because although they are great things of beauty, they're also quite expensive. So but I do want to leave a line so that people know how to get from the shot to the wreck. So the solution to this problem is to chop the line, and that's what I'm going to do. Anybody who's seen my Vandalia video will have seen me do this badly on that video. But this one, I'm going to take out my knife. I'm going to chop the line. In fact, I've just done it, and then. In fact, no, I haven't. Sorry, here I am. You can see the line in front of me. I've got it relatively taut. I'm going to get out the little knife that I've got attached to my convoluted hose, and I will then chop there it is, chop it. So there's rope from the shot line to the wreck. I've got my reel, so it's not being left down here, and that means I can head back, knowing that my duty is done. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. Rick has got slightly other ideas, though. I think, like me, he was a bit burnt by the whole Vandalia thing. So he's decided that I haven't put the line on well enough. So he's going to tie it to the wreck a bit better. So that's what he's doing down there. You can see him on the seabed. Now, the other thing about Rick is that he'd only been on the wreck for a really small amount of time as well. Small amount of time. So when I found the wreck, he'd actually gone back to the shot line. It wasn't until he got back to the shot line and realised I wasn't there that he then came back down the distance line and found me on the wreck. So he's literally only been on the wreck for a couple of minutes, which means he didn't get many photos. He didn't really get a good look round it. But obviously we'd had several days of really good diving. So Rick's, I think, felt duty bound to make sure that everyone else got on the wreck, and that's obviously what he's making sure happens there by tying it on nicely. In fact, there you go. You can just see we've got the first of the other divers who've come along and have followed my bit of string, and are going to have a nice dive on the wreck because we sorted them out. So well done us. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. But it's actually a really good result. And one of the things with this kind of diving is it is absolutely a team game. So actually, what you can see here is you can see how close that drag mark is to the wreck. Really close, and shows how well Bob did with getting the shot in. It was a really difficult thing to shot. You can also see that we're going to be back at the the shot in it very, very soon, and it wasn't actually that far away, although obviously at 90 metres everything seems like a long way. In fact, there's another 2 drag lines, so you can see with these 3 that we've just seen already, plus the 4th, there's at least evidence of 4 attempts to put the shot in, and I'm sure there was more as well. I think I'll just pause there to wait for Rick to catch me up, which I assume he's done. I can probably just see see his light or something out the corner of my eye that might not be visible in the Paralenz. Paralenz doesn't, I think, capture the full field of my eye's vision, so but it normally does. And here we go. We're getting back to the shot here. You can see, and I guess there's another diver. He's going the other way. Very pleased. In fact, there's the shot, and you can see the current has started to. As current has changed, it was vertical on the way down. It's now starting to drag, and it's dragging the other way. So it's a good job that we tied it to the wreck. And there's me telling the other divers which way to the wreck. Now, the other thing to remember is, you probably at the beginning I said you have to remember what it is that I didn't do that I should have done. And what I didn't do that I should have done is put on my strobe, which I didn't do. So I got a bit task focused on doing the distance line search, which was poor drills by me. But hey, everybody gets it wrong sometimes, and that's life. But you can see there we are. We're both powering back up the shot line now, and you can see that I've got 130 minutes of TTS. First deco stop is at 45 meters. It's going to be quite a long time. For those of you interested, you can see the gas that I've been breathing here is 880, so it's a really good helium mix, really good gas density and equivalent narcotic depth for this kind of dive. Also, just see my computer's telling me I've got a bit of a fast ascent there, and I think I've mentioned this before that I like to get off the bottom quickly, and Rick does as well, and no point hanging around. So I certainly, the first part of the ascent, I get off really quickly, and then I try to bring it down to 10 meters a minute for the rest of the ascent until I get up to my first deco stop. So that is what's happening. And you can see I've skipped a bit here. It's gone dark because I've turned off my video lights. You can see this is me here just kind of hooking my scooter up onto the front of my rebreather. Clearly, anyone who's seen my scooter video will know I no longer put it behind me, but that's it going on there. I'm at my first deco stop, which is 40 odd meters. There's Rick, he's just below me, and the next thing I'm going to do, well, you just see, having a quick look at my dive computer there, I've slightly bounced my deco stop. That's why it's gone red. You can see there I'm at 42.9. I should be at 45 meters, so I just need to get myself back down again, and that's kind of what I'm doing. Sheer water goes red when it really doesn't like you bounce, missing your deco stop. It goes yellow and then you've got a period of time, I think it's a minute or possibly 2 minutes to get back down to the right depth. And you can see that's what I'm currently doing here. So I will get to 45 meters in a little bit, I'm sure. Either that or the stop depth will change to 42. That's the other thing that happens. I think that's what's happened in this case. It is I've cleared the 45 meter stop, so that's all okay. So what I'm doing now is, you can see I'm using my rebreather handset on the left hand side. I'm changing the set point to 1.45 bar, and once I've done that, which you can't see, once I've done that, I will do the same thing on my sheer water. And the good thing is that this is actually positioned really nicely to see in my Paralenz. Doesn't always happen on many of my dives, but you can see there we go. Changing up to 1.5 with the kind of 2-button press system and pushing it back, and that will obviously help out by reducing my deco, or accelerating my deco, I should say more precisely. So on the subject of my deco, here is my deco profile. You can see standard sheer water download. You can see there, got to the bottom really quickly, about the 3-minute point, and you can see the kind of diving. See us hitting the wreck about there. You can see I come up off the seabed, and there's the rest of the diving. It's going to be dropping back down, coming back over to the shot, and then obviously fairly rapid ascent up to get up to my first deco stop. And you can see there, that's when I change or accelerate the deco, and you can see it makes about 15 minutes difference in terms of total decompression required. And there I come up all the way, eventually get on the trapeze at the 6 meter point, and come slightly above the trapeze for the 3 metre stops, and eventually get out the water at about the 2.5 hour mark. So if you haven't already done so, I'd encourage you to go and have a look at my HMS Negro video.
Rediving routes and finding a bell, and to find one on a really significant, historical wreck like that is just fantastic.
But that was yesterday's dive. I hope you've enjoyed today's dive, which is all about what you do if the shot isn't on the wreck, and how you cope with it, and how sometimes you've got to take that time to have a look around. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.